My sister framed me for theft to win over her in-laws, so I collected proof. Played it at her wedding, and watched her face fall apart. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I've always been the background character in my own family. If my life was a play, I'd be the stagehand. Not the villain. Not the hero. Just the guy in the shadows, moving props while everyone claps for my sister. Leela. Leela is 3 years older than me, 13 from the moment she could speak in full sentences. People called her special. She's so graceful, my mom would beam. She's going places, Dad always said. Meanwhile, I was the kid who got good grades, followed rules, and somehow still ended up being difficult because I wasn't as bright as her. Not emotionally, not socially, not in any way that counted in our household. I'll never forget my 15th birthday. I walked into our living room expecting a quiet dinner, and there were balloons. Streamers. A freaking cake with Leela in cursive icing. "Oh, honey," Mom said quickly, like she'd tripped over the truth. Her friends wanted to surprise her early, but of course we didn't forget you. They handed me a card with no money inside and a slice of her cake. I smiled. I always smiled. I thought maybe if I just kept being good, they'd see me. But that day, something cracked, deep and silent. Not loud enough for anyone else to hear, but I heard it. And it never really stopped echoing. Lila didn't even apologize. She just tossed her hair and said, "You're not mad, are you? You hate parties anyway." And maybe that was the worst part, how convincing she was when she acted like she knew me better than I did. I learned early. Her shine only worked if I stayed dim. And so, I did. I faded, but eventually, I stopped being okay with it. And that's when everything began to unravel. When Lila got engaged to Daniel. It was like watching a high-budget movie premiere, and I was cast as the silent crew member taping wires behind the scenes. Daniel was decent, kind, soft-spoken, and came from a conservative, well-off family. The type of family that didn't just value appearances, they worshipped them. And Lila, she turned that pressure into performance. Suddenly, she was Miss Graceful, turned Martha Stewart overnight. Hosting dinner parties, researching tea sets, creating Pinterest boards labeled Future Mrs. Whitmore. My parents gushed like she'd won an Olympic medal. "She's really matured," Mom said. "She's worked so hard for this," Dad added. Worked hard? She hadn't lifted a finger without delegating it first to me. "Hey, can you set up the smart TV before his parents come over? Can you drive me to the florist? I hate parking there." "Don't forget to clean up the garage," I told Daniel. "We're minimalists now." Did it all. Not because I wanted to, but because saying no meant another lecture from my parents about being supportive. But not once, not even once did Lila thank me. She just smiled that perfect Instagram smile and posted photos with captions like, "So blessed to have such a loving, supportive family," with zero mention of me. I wasn't a sibling, I was set dressing. The final punch? A post of her and Daniel standing arm in arm in front of the house, my car in the corner of the frame. Cropped out, that's when I started to feel it. Not just the old hurt, but something new. A slow boiling anger. The kind that doesn't shout. It simmers. She wanted the perfect narrative. The flawless illusion. But every illusion eventually cracks. And she had no idea who'd be holding the hammer. It happened during one of those over-the-top family dinners. Lila loved throwing the kind where every plate had gold trim and every word had to sound like a compliment. Daniel's parents were there, both polished and polite, but with that air of quiet judgment that made you straighten your posture without realizing it. Everything was going fine until Daniel's mom suddenly froze mid-conversation. Her hand went to her wrist. "My bracelet," she whispered, voice sharp with panic. "It was just here." The table fell silent. Leela's eyes darted around, her mouth opening just enough to let out a soft, practiced gasp. "Oh my God. I'm so sorry, maybe my brother picked it up by mistake." For a second, I thought I misheard. The air thickened. Every head turned toward me. "What?" I said, my voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. "Why would I?" Lila cut me off, eyes wide with false innocence. "I'm not saying you stole it. I just... sometimes things get mixed up. You've been under stress lately." Stress. That was her word for being unemployed for a few months after a layoff. She spun it perfectly, her tone dripping with concern, not accusation. "He's been struggling," she added softly, "but he'd never mean to do something like this." Daniel's parents exchanged looks. My own mother's face went pale. My father mumbled something about misunderstandings. Nobody defended me. Not one word. I wanted to stand, to shout, to make them see how absurd it was, but I froze. Because for the first time, I saw it in their eyes. They thought maybe. Maybe she was right. The bracelet was found hours later. A couch cushion, exactly where Daniel's mother had taken off her coat. Everyone laughed awkwardly, acting relieved. But the damage was done. No one said it out loud, but I could feel it. From that night on, I wasn't just the forgotten brother. I was the suspect. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the moment in my head, her voice, trembling with false concern, suggesting I took something that didn't belong to me. I tried talking to my parents the next morning, thinking maybe in private they'd understand how deeply that hurt. Dad shook his head before I even finished. Why make a big deal out of it? The bracelet was found. Move on, move on. As if being humiliated in front of strangers was a paper cut I could slap a Band-Aid on. She didn't accuse you directly. My mom added gently, like that made it better. You have been a little off lately. Just let it go. Don't ruin her engagement. That line hit harder than I expected. Ruin her engagement. Because my dignity was apparently disposable as long as her fairy tale stayed intact. But she lied. I said quietly this time. She lied about me. And you all sat there. Mom reached out and touched my hand. Be the bigger person. That's what they always told me. Be the bigger person. Stay quiet. Be understanding. Be invisible later. When Leela and I were alone in the hallway, I asked her flat out, "Why would you say that about me?" She shrugged like I'd asked her to pass the salt. Relax. It's not a big deal. They found it, didn't they? You're overreacting, as usual. Overreacting. That word sliced through me like glass. From that day on, something shifted. Daniel's parents looked at me differently. Smiles a little tighter, conversations shorter. I was no longer just her brother. That was a question mark. A liability in Leela. She just kept smiling, perfectly framed, perfectly adored me. I started to disappear again. But this time, I wasn't fading quietly. This time I was watching and waiting. A few weeks later, I was grabbing my charger from the kitchen when I heard laughter echoing from the patio. Lila was out there with two of her bridesmaids, sipping wine, voices light and sharp like knives wrapped in velvet. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but then I heard my name. Oh my God, Lila giggled. He's just so desperate for attention lately. Like, okay, we get it, sure, sad and unemployed. Do you want a cookie? The others laughed. One said, maybe he's jealous of the wedding. Lila didn't miss a beat. He should be grateful I even invite him. Honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm dragging around a charity case. I stood there, out of sight, every muscle locked. That wasn't teasing. That was demolition. And suddenly, all the years of being forgotten, dismissed, overlooked, they didn't just ache. They burned. This wasn't about being the ignored son anymore. She was actively shaping how others saw me, whisper by whisper, joke by joke, and I realized something dangerous. She wasn't just letting people believe I was a loser. She needed them too. When I brought it up to my parents, hoping for some kind of line in the sand, they gave me the same recycled lines. Don't take it personally. She's just stressed with the wedding. Help her, okay? It's a big moment for her. Help her. Always her. So I stopped. I stopped picking up her dry cleaning. I stopped showing up early to move tables or fix her projector or install twinkle lights for her engagement photo shoot. I started saying, I'm busy. And when I wasn't busy, I made myself busy. But more importantly, I started watching, recording, saving screenshots, taking notes because something inside me snapped that day. If they wanted me to be the villain in her story, then I'd write the ending myself. It wasn't a grand plan at first, just instinct. A quiet, aching urge to finally stop second-guessing what I knew in my gut. Lila wasn't just selfish. She was dangerous, so I bought a cheap, voice-activated recorder online. Hid it behind the family photo frame in the living room. Nobody noticed? Why would they? I was the quiet one, the good son, the one who didn't make waves. A few days later, I hit play. Lila's voice crackled through the speaker, sharp and smug. "Yeah, I planted it," she said, like she was talking about putting sprinkles on a cake. Her mom already didn't like him. It was an easy win. There was a pause, then laughter her friend, giggling like it was some juicy gossip. "Savage, that's cold, even for you," Lila snorted. "Please, he's fine. He's always been dramatic. Besides, they'll forget about it once the wedding photos hit Instagram." I paused the recording. My thumb hovered over the button, trembling. My ears rang with silence. My heart thudded so loud I thought I might be sick. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. She set me up. She framed me. On purpose. In front of her in-laws, to elevate herself by erasing me, and the worst part, she didn't even flinch doing it. I sat there for hours listening to it again and again, until the rage settled into something colder, focused. This wasn't just sibling rivalry. This was calculated sabotage. She wanted to look flawless for Daniel's family. I was collateral, disposable. But now I had something she didn't know existed. Proof. The game had changed. And I knew exactly where this was going to end. Once the first recording worked, it became a habit. A quiet ritual. I'd slide the voice recorder into different corners of the house, under couch cushions, or behind flower vases, inside the drawer where she kept her makeup bag. Lila had no idea. She was too busy being the star of her own private show. And what a show it was. One day, she was on the phone with a florist. "No, I'm not paying for that. Just say it was backdoored. They'll eat it."
Another time.
She joked to her friend over coffee. "Honestly, once the wedding's over, I might just upgrade." Daniel's sweet but boring. And then came the line that sealed everything. "It's not like I'm marrying him for life. I just want the ring and the photos." People take you more seriously when you're someone's wife. I listened back, each word colder than the last. She wasn't planning a future. She was crafting an image. Daniel, his family, the guests. My parents, we were all just props in her curated fantasy. I organized the files on my laptop, each one labeled by date, time, and subject. I started editing them together, a 3-minute video. No narration, no special effects, just her voice, her smirk, her lies. A perfect little montage of rot behind the sparkle. Watching the final cut gave me chills. Not because I felt powerful, but because I realized how far she'd fallen and how many people she'd dragged down with her. All I needed now was the right moment to press play, and something told me the wedding day would be perfect. Right there in front of the crowd she so desperately wanted to fool. Let the mask fall where everyone could see. The morning of Lila's wedding was blindingly bright, sunlight bouncing off white linens, champagne flutes clinking, nervous laughter echoing through the venue hall. Everything was polished, perfect, exactly as she wanted it. She looked like a walking magazine cover in her designer gown, surrounded by bridesmaids fluffing her train and adjusting her veil. And I was invisible again. Just another shadow floating around the edges. I arrived early, dressed neatly, calm on the outside, but in my pocket was a flash drive that pulsed like a heartbeat. I found Daniel alone in the groom suite, adjusting his tie with slightly shaking hands. He looked up at me and gave a nod, not warm, but civil. "I need you to watch something," I said, pulling the flash drive from my coat. "Before you marry her, just, please." He stared at it, hesitation written all over his face. "What is this?" "Truth," I said quietly. "Unedited." He took it. I walked out and waited. Each second stretched like an hour. Outside the dressing room, I could hear footsteps, doors creaking, whispering, then bang. Daniel's door slammed open, and he came storming out, his face flushed and fists clenched. "Where is she?" Lila, down the hallway, turned at the sound. Her smile, so used to being admired, copied, Invity wavered for the first time in years. "Daniel?" she asked, her voice shaky, but still trying to hold composure. "What's wrong?" Guests began to notice. Murmurs rippled through the hallway. Our parents stood frozen, confused, waiting for someone to explain. "I think we need a minute," Daniel said, loud enough for everyone to hear. A real minute. The music stopped. The ceremony was paused, but no one knew. The real show hadn't even started yet, the reception room. It's gone from glowing celebration to suffocating silence. The lights were still warm, the tables still glittered with gold-trimmed centerpieces. But the air had changed. People whispered in small clusters, shooting glances toward Lila and Daniel, who hadn't spoken since his outburst. Lila sat stiffly at the sweetheart table, jaw tight, eyes darting from face to face, like she was calculating what people knew. I stood near the DJ booth, hand in my pocket, thumb rubbing the edge of the flash drive. My heart was hammering, but my mind was steady. This was it. I approached the DJ, leaned in and whispered, "Play the video. Full volume. Projector 2. He blinked. "You sure?" "Very." The music stopped. The lights dimmed. The projector flickered on. At first, there was a second of static. Then Leela's voice. "I don't even like his mom. She talks like she's royalty." Laughter. Cut 2. "Honestly, if I get bored, I'll just upgrade. It's not like I'm stuck." Cut 2. I planted the bracelet. Her mom already hated him. Easy win. The room gasped in unison. Someone dropped a fork. Daniel's parents looked like they'd been slapped. His mother's hand flew to her mouth. His father stood up slowly, face hardening with every second, and Lala didn't move. Her eyes locked on the screen, watching her kingdom collapse. "Turn it off," my mother hissed from behind me. "Please." But it was too late. The footage played to the end, each second peeling back a layer of the pristine mask she wore so well. When the screen faded to black, the silence was deafening. Lila stood, wobbled, her face pale, lips trembling. Then she bolted heels, clacking against marble, veil trailing like a ghost behind her. And just like that, the queen of the evening vanished. Crowned in lies, drenched in truth, the ceremony never resumed. There were no vows, no rings, no first dance, just murmurs, broken floral arrangements, and a silence that spread like spilled wine across a white tablecloth. Daniel's family left without a word. No scenes, no shouting, just a stiff, coordinated exit. His mother wouldn't even look in our direction. His father gave Leela's parents a firm nod and walked away like he was closing the door on a business deal gone bad. Leela had locked herself in the bridal suite. Bridesmaids knocked gently at first, then gave up. Her veil and bouquet sat abandoned on the table like props in a canceled play. I stood by the side doors, watching it all unravel. Then I heard footsteps. My father, red-faced, fists clenched. "You smug little bastard," he spat. "You just had to ruin everything, everything." I asked quietly. "She worked so hard for this. You embarrassed hers." Behind him, my mother's voice trembled. "You didn't have to go that far. You didn't have to destroy her like that." I let out a laugh, low, bitter, ugly. "I didn't destroy her. She did that all on her own. I just showed you what she really is." That shut them up. For a moment at least, then I turned and walked out. Past the flower walls, past the ice sculpture, past the open bar where champagne had stopped flowing. No one stopped me. But as I reached the parking lot, that weight I always carried, the need to be seen, understood, loved, shifted. I didn't feel lighter. I felt hollow, because in the end, it wasn't Lila's betrayal that gutted me the most. It was theirs. The people who raised me, and still chose to believe in her lie over my truth. In the weeks that followed, Lila did what she always did: perform. She posted a carefully curated story online about a misunderstanding and family drama taken out of context. She hinted that the video had been edited, that I had a vendetta, that she was targeted by bitterness. But the thing about masks is they don't work once the crowd has seen underneath. Vendors began pulling out, angry about unpaid balances and broken contracts. The photographer publicly demanded payment. The florist left a comment under one of Leela's photos. Still waiting on the check, sweetheart. Daniel. He never spoke to her again. Blocked her on everything. Returned the ring by courier. Meanwhile, I cut contact with everyone. I stopped answering texts. Ignored the guilt-laced voicemails from my mother. Come home. We're still family. Family is all we have. But I'd heard that line before. And now, I finally understood the truth. Family isn't who shares your last name. It's who stands beside you when it counts. I moved into a small apartment across town. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom with creaky floors and an old radiator that hissed when it got cold. But it was mine. No passive-aggressive remarks. No whispering behind closed doors. Just peace. For the first time in my life, I stopped waiting for their approval. Stopped chasing their love like a dog begging for scraps. I read more. Cooked for myself. Even started freelancing online, slowly rebuilding confidence in something other than survival. And every time my phone buzzed with one of their messages, stared at it for a beat, then let it ring out. They had chosen their golden child. Now they could keep her, because I was done being their scapegoat. I was finally writing my own story. I used to think healing would feel like fireworks, like justice slamming down like a gavel. Loud, final, but the truth. Healing is quiet. It's the soft click of a lock. When you close the door to a place you no longer owe your pain. I moved to a different city 6 months after the wedding that wasn't. Somewhere no one knew me as Lila's brother. Somewhere I could exist without comparison or apology. I started therapy. 3 sessions in, I broke down, not because I was angry, but because someone finally asked, "And what did you need?" I didn't know how to answer, but I'm learning. Slowly, I landed a stable remote job, started saving, made a couple of friends who don't treat kindness like currency. I even joined a late-night music group, just 5 people and a dusty piano in a community center basement. And when I play, there's no judgment. Just sound Lila's name hasn't crossed my lips in months. My parents still send the occasional message. I don't answer. Not out of spite, just peace. She tried to destroy me, to impress people who barely liked her, but her lies set me free. The final shot, if this were a film, would be my small desk drawer. Inside, among receipts and spare keys, sits a single USB drive, labeled in my handwriting, Lila_truth_final.mp4. I haven't touched it since that day. I don't need to, because healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means refusing to let it define who you become. You don't heal by getting revenge. You heal by walking away when the truth is louder than the lie. And finally, I can hear myself again.